search for her sister. After her shift, a co-worker named Blake offered Ruth a ride. She could sense his kindness, but 20 years cut off from the world had built high walls of caution around her heart. Before long, Ruth went to a public library and secretly used a computer to search for any trace of Katie. But the internet gave her no leads on Katie. When she typed in her own name, however, the pages were flooded with old mugshots from her arrest 20 years earlier. She then clicked on a listing for her former home, now labeled a murder house, but saw it had been bought by someone a decade ago. Ruth took a bus toward her old neighborhood. Outside the window, the scenery silently overlapped with her memories, just like the ride home from school 20 years before. After walking several more miles, she finally stood in front of the old house etched with childhood memories. She didn't dare go inside, just let her eyes linger on every brick and board. Her mind drifted back to that phone call from the sheriff 20 years ago when he'd urged her to leave the house. If she had taken Katie and left then, she would have lost custody of her sister. But because she stood her ground, her life shattered instead. Just then, Liz, the woman living inside, noticed Ruth. Seeing this stranger staring intently outside the window, she grew wary and called over her husband, John. While Ruth was still lost in memories, John approached and asked if she needed help. Flustered, Ruth made up an excuse, saying she had once done renovation work in the house long ago. Sensing her unease, kind-hearted John unexpectedly invited her inside to look around. When the familiar furnishings came into view, Ruth's sealed-off memories came rushing back. But after a few questions from Liz, John a harsh reminder about the limits of her parole.
So this guy knows you're an offender, right?
You didn't ask.
And why is he willing to trust you?
That stud wall you're leaning against?
Blow shattered any sense of luck Ruth had clung to. For the rest of her life, she would have to move forward wearing invisible chains. After her shift that day, Blake once again offered her a ride home. This time, Ruth didn't refuse. Along the way, they talked about light topics and a long-absent smile finally appeared on Ruth's face. That moment together gave her a glimpse of another possible future. But tragedy had never truly left her. Not far away, Keith was watching every move, his eyes fixed on the scene. Late that night at the renovation site, Ruth was looking at Katie's photo with tears in her eyes when she suddenly heard footsteps coming upstairs. Alert, she grabbed a pipe wrench and carefully made her way down. It was Blake.
Your life starts here now, not 20 years ago.
She's actually better off without you.
Ruth stayed silent, then turned and went inside. In the days that followed, she and Blake grew closer. This sincere man, with his patience and gentleness, slowly began to melt the walls around her heart, letting her taste the possibility of love. Rachel turned and told her they hadn't burned the letters, they had only hidden them. Not wanting Katie to remember the past, Ruth pleaded with them to at least tell Katie about her. But they walked away, resolved never to allow Ruth to see their daughter. When Ruth finally calmed down, John softly apologized. There was nothing more he could do. Meanwhile, under the dim lamplight, Katie and Amy sat reading the letters their parents had deliberately hidden. These letters were like a silent witness, telling a story of a sister who never gave up on loving her younger sibling. In that moment, Amy finally understood that the dangerous killer their parents spoke of was actually the person who loved Katie most in the world. Back at the construction site, Ruth frantically pounded the wall, wood chips and tears scattering through the air. But none of it could change the fact that she couldn't see Katie. The next day, while Ruth was still grieving her inability to meet Katie, Blake quietly approached her. This time, he didn't apologize. Instead, he calmly revealed his own identity. He was also a parolee, released a year and a half ago, and he too had to report to a parole officer every week. That was why he had frozen. Simply being seen together already violated their parole conditions. Blake's honesty dissolved Ruth's anger, though it also meant their romance could go no further. After work, Ruth suddenly received a call from Amy, who confessed she had read the letters and decided to reach out. They arranged to meet the next day in a park. While waiting for Amy, Ruth kindly picked up a glove a little girl had dropped. Her gentle gesture was seen by Amy, instantly confirming Amy's belief that Ruth was a good person. The two then shared an open and honest conversation on a park bench. Ruth spoke of teaching Katie how to tie her shoes, and Amy shared funny stories about life with her sister. As they parted, Amy quietly revealed a crucial detail. Katie had a piano rehearsal that afternoon at the concert hall downtown. Ruth could go and see her, just from a distance. Hearing this, Ruth's eyes welled up. After 20 years of waiting, she finally had a chance to lay eyes on Katie again. However, while Ruth called John to ask if she could secretly go see Katie, she didn't notice that Steve had followed Amy home, planting a seed of danger that would soon grow. When Steve returned home, ready to tell his wife he might leave for good, he heard their baby crying in the crib. But upon opening the bedroom door, he witnessed his wife's betrayal with none other than his own older brother. He gently put the child down and took one last look at the woman he once loved before walking away, heartbroken. If Ruth hadn't been released, Keith would never have come to his city, and none of this would have happened. So Steve placed all the blame on Ruth. He then went to his mother's house, where he found his father's old service weapon. Unable to reach John by phone, Ruth made her way to his house. Liz, however, was still angry about Ruth's criminal past and the earlier deception. She demanded that Ruth leave immediately. Desperate, Ruth pleaded with her, admitting her mistakes and apologizing again and again. All she wanted to know was whether she could go see Katie alone, or if she needed a lawyer present. But even as they argued, Liz refused to tell her where John was. In her distress, Ruth's emotions finally overflowed.
John looks at you and he sees someone who deserves a second chance. I don't see that. I hear someone who will say anything to get what she wants.
You would do exactly the same thing for your kids.
Don't go
exactly.
there. Don't even pretend this is about her.
Exactly, I was protecting her.
You are not a victim.
I said
all right?
I
That's
did
bullshit.
I had to make a
Face
choice.
it. You traumatized her. Do not
I
even
fucking
pretend
said I did
this
it.
is about her.
She was only 5 years old. She was only 5 years old.
Suddenly, Liz realized that Ruth might not be a cold-blooded killer, but a sister forced into an impossible choice years ago. After hearing Ruth's full story, Liz herself got into the car and drove Ruth toward the concert hall downtown. Meanwhile, under the stage lights, Katie's hands hovered above the piano keys. Her adoptive parents sat in the front row, smiling warmly as they listened to her play. Just as Ruth arrived outside the concert hall, Steve called her. He told her he had kidnapped Katie and ordered Ruth to come alone to an address he provided. Panicked, Ruth lied to Liz, saying Katie's performance had ended and they were at a different location. Unsuspecting, Liz drove Ruth to the given address. When they arrived, Liz realized it was an abandoned construction site. Ruth could no longer hide the truth. She told Liz that Katie had been taken. Terrified, Liz retreated into the car to call the police, while Ruth walked alone into the site.